I hadn't played any From Software titles until Corona era, where I sat down, popped the stream on, and I ran through all of them, and in a way that triggered the most passionate fans and players of those games. Draw! Oh! 1! 2! Strike! Strike! Part of the appeal of them is that generally you're free to make so many choices on your own terms. How you fight, the path you take, the challenges you endure. It's like a true action-based version of a choose-your-own-adventure novel. Dark Souls 1, its many faults aside, captures this essence perfectly. And it's one of those games where I think the first playthrough just feels really special. You can check out all my playthroughs on this channel, by the way. That said, there's a pet peeve I have with a phrase that has become very common in gaming journalism circles. It's become something of a meme in the past 10 to 15 years. That's, this thing is the Dark Souls of genre category. What the hell do people mean when they say that shit? Hey guys, Majin Obama here, and Black Disc handled the editing for this video, and big ups to him. We worked pretty hard on it over the course of the past few months. But what I wanted to say was, if you're familiar with this game, Fate Unlimited Codes, go ahead and skip the chapters. Make sure you use the chapters accordingly. Skip towards the competitive chapters and the mission mode clears. But if you're not familiar, the initial chapters are about the franchise, about this game, and it'll give you a foundation for understanding just why it has the reputation that it does and what you're going to be looking at in the latter chapters of the video. That said, use those accordingly. Thanks to everybody tuning in. Thanks to everybody watching. Thanks for everybody subscribing. And enjoy it. What do you believe in? That ideal you live by, your code. How far would you be willing to go and still stand by it? What if someone stood in your way, told you that following it would lead you and those you love to ruin? What if standing on business meant destroying yourself in the process, leading to you to become a warped version of yourself that you can't even recognize anymore? Would you change? Or would you press on in an attempt to deny that decided future? This is just the first series of questions posed to readers at the core of the Fate franchise, starting with Fate Stay Night. This visual novel series, written by Kinoko Nasu, and under the Type Moon umbrella of works, tangentially related to series like Kara no Kyokai and Tsukihime, Melty Blood. Since the original Fate Stay Night was released in the 2000s, this series has expanded with various spin-offs, sequel series, games, and media. Before this explosion in popularity worldwide, spurred on especially through Fate Go, one of the leading grossers in the mobile game market globally in the past 15 years, this franchise was popular, but the IP had a much more modest following back then. In addition to manga, anime series, OVAs, and the source material, the visual novels, in the late 2000s through the 2010s, the IP enjoyed a variety of experimental games from various publishers. Fate Samurai Remnant, Fate Extra, Fate Go Arcade, Melty Blood Type Lumina years later, but before all of these, there was Fate Unlimited Codes. This was a 3D fighting game developed by Aiding, planned by Kavia, for Namco Arcade hardware, published by Capcom, based on Type Moon IP. I say all of that to say this game had to have been a licensing nightmare. Fate Unlimited Codes was originally released for Namco System 246 arcade hardware, and this originally dropped on June 11, 2008, with the PlayStation 2 port of the game following on December 18, 2008, though only available in Japan. 6 months later down the line, on June 18, 2009, the PSP version was released, and finally, the localized version of that PSP release came out on September 3rd, 2009 in Western markets. Now, those of you who know ball might recognize some of these company names. Aiding in particular is a funny developer when it comes to fighting games, and I'm just going to run off some of the names of games that they made in the past. The Bloody Roar series, Battle Garaga for the shmup heads, Naruto Clash of Ninjas series, Bleach Heat the Soul, Tekken Advance, Castlevania Judgment, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, DNF Duel, baby. We don't talk about that though, but Hunter x Hunter, Nen Impact, we also don't talk about that. I blame Bushiroad. UMBC 3 is an interesting one too, because I feel like there's some moves that just straight up got copy-pasted from this game into that game.
Triple arrow! Triple arrow! No! Max no! Maximum!
Anyway, the original arcade release of Fate Unlimited Codes comes out with 13 characters, and the PlayStation 2 port added 4 new characters added to the cast, with several of them requiring arcade mode clears to unlock. This is pretty typical stuff for a console release. Also got an unlockable costume as well for Saber, as well as some unlockable stages. Now, we talked about the PSP version of the game. This was actually a localized, like I mentioned earlier, it was actually a localized version of the game that got released overseas. And that might be where most Western audiences would be vaguely familiar with this game outside of hardcore fighting game circles. However, and hear me out on this, that is not the real version of this game. And I know it's a fighting game player bitching about a port that is not an arcade perfect version, blah, 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 blah. But for real, hear me out. The version released on PSP is not real because of a variety of changes to the system, characters, and it gets down into the very core of the game. It's not like a patch, it's basically not even the same kind of game. The most wild of these changes is that the arcade and PS2 versions are, of course, 60 frames per second standard fighting games, right? The PSP version is 30 frames per second. And to do this, half the frame data in the game had to change. In addition to commands, a variety of other system mechanic changes, it's pretty much a version of the game to play and mess around with for fun, but it doesn't really give you the true experience of playing Fate Unlimited Codes. Fate Unlimited Codes is a 4-button 3D fighting game, and the button layout is kind of what you would expect, light, medium, heavy, with the D button being the reflect guard button. But this button has a lot of system mechanics attached to it. For example, and I guess we can talk about the movement, pressing the D button during super jumps will manually turn your character around, and this allows for more aerial approach and attack options. The game has dashes, double jumps, back dashes. Back dashes are invincible, can be tagged out of the recovery. And interestingly enough, manual fast fall, think like Smash Brothers. And if you do a super jump, for example, and hold down, you'll get some interesting juggles for some characters, actually. But a quick glance at the HUD and you'll notice that the super gauge at the bottom is divided into thirds, with a holy grail in the center near the timer. While damage taken by characters slowly fills the chalice, with the character whose damage is dealt filling the grail, activating Grail Max State. This grants the character access to their ultimate attack, a Grail super that even in combos will hit for 4,000 damage unscaled. Sidestep in this game is actually character unique. Every character has different trajectories and depth when it comes to their sidestep. Average HP for reference is about 9,900 units, but character HP values are different as well, with Berserker and Saber being some of the tankier characters. Characters in this game have different HP values and character weights as well, and that makes a difference for juggles and combos and fall speed. For example, Berserker is a super heavyweight class, with Rin being a more lightweight character. Game also, of course, has throws, but it also, interestingly enough, has a class system. When two attacks collide, the reel back recovery can be cancelable into other attacks, and this kind of creates scramble situations. I say all this to say, Fate Unlimited Codes is almost like a hodgepodge of aiding fighting game mechanics. So that means a ton of defensive options. Advancing guard like the Versus series, guard cancel attacks. The R button is a multifunctional button that works as a parry in neutral, but has follow-ups on successful parries. But another interesting option is its functionality in combos. By canceling an attack into the D button, the reflect guard button, you'll perform a reflect cancel. This cancel undoes gravity scaling in the combo, allowing for you to extend it. Typically, the idea in fighting games is usually the longer you do a combo for, the game will usually have some kind of mechanism or scaling system in place to either force the combo to end or incentivize players to end the combo. This has been seen and done a number of ways over the years. For example, there can be something like hit stun decay, which will just make characters eventually stop getting hit stun long enough for the combo to continue. Damage decay to incentivize players to end the combo. And even some games just use time as a factor. You just can't juggle past a certain amount of time. In this game, the opposing character's stun and gravity are affected, meaning that they fall faster in juggles as the combo goes on, thus making it harder to continue comboing them. Therefore, the reflect cancel system is huge at being able to curb this and extend combo sequences. And so with that said, I want to turn your attention to the gauge, the super meter system in this game, called the mana system. Meter fills with engagement in this game, kind of like attacks performed, blocked, and various other actions that build different amounts. The gauge is separated into thirds, totaling 300%, with various mechanics costing portions of that meter. So supers, for example, will cost 1 bar or 100%, but push blocking, that only costs about 30% or so. Parry options and reflect canceling cost 60%. Guard canceling also costs 100%. But once you get 100%, that's when you have access to not only supers, but another important mechanic, the magic burst. Pressing A, B, and C with 100 meter will do a 360-degree burst. Think like Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue, Persona, Melty, those kinds of games. And it'll knock the opponent back and put the player in a powered-up state where they gain access to a number of character-unique buffs. Normals now inflict chip damage. You regain health. Specials can be canceled in the supers and other effects while the mana slowly drains from your gauge. The amount of time that you are in this state is directly proportional to how much super meter you started with when you activated. This mechanic, again, similar to the previous burst mechanics I mentioned earlier, can be applied both offensively and defensively. Activating your magic burst on defense will knock the opponent back, can be used to stop pressure or offense, or it can even be used on wake up to instantly stand up, pause the game, allow you to assess the situation, and maybe get out of certain Okizeme situations or make a decision. Activating magic burst in a combo, however, will grant the buffs, but also undo some gravity scaling of the combo, just like the reflect cancel, allowing you to use it to extend combos and offensive sequences. You'll see this later in the video used alongside reflect canceling a lot. Of course, as you gain meter, your character gains their unique command seals. And this is, of course, a story-related element with the Fate series. But basically, if you activate your magic burst at max gauged with 300% meter, each character will receive character-unique effects. This is one of those things where I think people who made the game were just fans and wanted to do some extra stuff for no reason. For example, Leysritt has a super armor bar that allows her to tank hits, right? Her command seal gives her a full bar of armor. Kirei also has specials and normals that deal 20% more damage. Sakura now drains the opponent's mana on hit. Zero Lancer does double chip damage, just to give you an idea of how a few of them work. As you can see, this game has a lot of mechanics and tools available to players. But the driving force and appeal of this game on a gameplay level is that, setting aside the wealth of mechanics and systems present, the challenge that the execution of doing commands and combos in this game is. It's just how the execution is. The thing is, you don't even have to engage with that if you don't want to. That's the beauty of it. It's there for people who want to dive deeper and play the game and try to see how far they can go with it, right? But if you just want to boot up and just do ABC Super, ABC Launch, ABC, you can do that. But for those who brave the depths, this game is one where, it's one of the pinnacles of execution in fighting games because of its system mechanics and what they allow the player to do. Furthermore, I want to paint this picture with some of the high execution titles, right? So with each one you examine, you can find certain key concepts that that game will emphasize or test you on. So for example, Hokuto no Ken, I think it's about rhythm, speed, precision. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, similar. KOF 13, for as difficult as it gets painted, a lot of stuff with that game is about buffer and understanding the buffer system in SNK games and input shortcuts. Melee, to me, a lot of it is APM and timing. Fate Unlimited Codes is about tiger knees. What's a tiger knee, you ask? Well, buckle up. It all starts with a game called Street Fighter II. In the Championship Edition version of this game, Sagat debuts his Tiger Knee attack, which is performed by doing down, down, forward, forward, and ending in up, forward, and a kick input. Now, here's some trivia for you. Even though we call this kind of input where an up input is fused into the motion a tiger knee, and most people do attribute this kind of input to Sagat, the truth is this move was probably inspired by SNK's Joe Higashi, who has Tiger Strike. It's done with the same input, but it debuted several months prior, actually. Coincidence or another case of historical Capcom washing revisionist history? You decide. But with that, I want to focus on the true nature of this game, Fate Unlimited Codes, and why it's so evil. Keep the idea of the tiger knee input in the back of your mind. You see, a jump cancel is simply the act of canceling an attack or an action into a jump. This is a common mechanic across Arc System Works titles, Versus titles, tons of fighting games. Stay with me here. Jumps in this game are 4 frames, meaning tapping up, you are in pre-jump status for 4 frames before you go airborne. You can hit this jump during the recovery or active frames of an attack to get this input as soon as possible, right? So it looks like this. Now you get that, right? Here's the catch. That 4-frame pre-jump state is cancelable into specials and supers. So if you do a special or a super within that 4-frame gap, you can cancel your jump into another attack. Now, let's connect those dots. Let's take a look at one of the first characters that I started my mission mode run with, Kotomine. It is through this character's trials, which are essentially function as one of the early bosses of the game, that the player is given a proper introduction to the true sinister nature of Fate Unlimited Codes. This is his crouching C. This attack is not special or super cancelable by itself, meaning if you hit it or your opponent blocks it, you cannot cancel it into a special or super. However, it is jump cancelable. So we hit the crouch C and you can jump. Now, let's connect that dot. We hit the crouch C, jump, and very quickly, remember we only have 4 frames while we're in this pre-jump state, cancel the jump into a fireball, which he can then link into a standing B after and continue the combo. Now you might be thinking, wait, doing a fireball motion might take 3 frames by itself. After all, you're going from down, forward to forward. Isn't that too hard to do? Well, remember our friends Sagat and Joe. Remember the tiger knee and its motion. What if we combine the fireball input with the jump? So by doing 2C, 2369A, and ending in the up input, we hit the requirements for the system to give us the fireball and the jump in one input. Because of the buffer, we hit the fireball early enough in the pre-jump frames so it comes out and we can then continue the combo. You can see applications of this kind of concept in games like UMVC3 with Dante bolt cancels, for example. Now this also means it's easy to hit the button too late or you accidentally get an airborne attack. Thus, precision and speed are key. And that is this game's challenge to you. If you wish to see the depths of what this combo system offers, how can you tiger knee? This is the fundamental question of the game. How can you tiger knee this move? How can you slide an up input into that next special or into that super and hit your cancel? Moreover, how can you do it quickly within that 4-frame window consistently with speed and precision? So here's some examples with some common inputs, right? So like fireballs, double fireball supers, etc. And let's also take a look at some characters, and I'll highlight that. First, I want to give you an overview, a brief overview of some of the more common characters that are going to be featured throughout this video, especially as we move on into the competition chapters, just so you have an idea of what you're looking at. First character, and going to be one of the most prominently featured, is going to be Lancer. Lancer is, at this point in the game, especially earlier on, was considered one of the higher value characters for reasons that as soon as you watch the gameplay, it'll be pretty obvious. First things first, he has a spear, right? What does that mean? Reach. Look at how far he reaches. Not only that, but he has a lot of attacks that move him forward. He has a command dash with attacks out of it that he can combo from. He has a 6C, which is normally not special cancelable, but it is jump cancelable, right? So you know what that means. You can cancel it in the specials if you Tiger Knee. Pop Quiz. This is his DP. Light DP, medium punch DP, medium attack DP. His CDP functions as a reversal with a little bit of invuln. Pop Quiz. How do we Tiger Knee a DP? That's how. Now, the big reason why he is such a pain to fight against is, take a look at this. This is his crouch C. That is a low. And this hits from, you can see, pretty far away, right? Now, honestly, if you move out full screen, it's like still 50% of the screen at max zoom out, right? But the threat of this is so huge because he can convert from this. Now, if that's not bad enough, he has a command dash attack that when done low altitude in the air is an overhead. So neutral with him, you're already in a 50-50. Not only that, he can combo from this. So you're basically in a 50-50 from the moment you even hop on the screen against this character. That's one reason why he's so frustrating. The speed, the range, the built-in movement, and just, again, the threat of low overhead from most places on the screen. This character is a pain. And honestly, his execution is not that hard relative to the rest of the cast. Next character I want to show off is Berserker. Big body, he's a grappler, so you know what that means. You're getting gripped up. Does have a super grab, 720 as well. But what makes him good is specials that, again, have built-in movement. That's a recurring theme, right? Huge range. He's a super heavyweight. He has more HP. That can be a good and a bad thing, right? Especially given his size. He, for that reason, is a big target. And especially when it comes to some of the characters who can really impose like high-low mix-ups, he's going to be more susceptible to those. And it's going to be a little bit harder on defense, but the game has so many defensive mechanics that, you know, you have a lot to work with. Combo-wise, he's going to show off a couple concepts here. One is going to be, again, if you're going from a crouch C into a DP, pop quiz again, how do we Tiger Knee a DP? Moreover, in Magic Burst, what you'll see a lot of the times is, and this is not a true like TK cancel, this is actually a different kind of subsystem, sub-trend in 8-ing games. It's not just this game, by the way. But it's the idea of jump canceling your crouch C, then quickly returning down to remain standing and then looping that. So it's basically doing crouch C, quickly tapping up to jump cancel it, then canceling that back into crouch. You'll stay on the ground and you can do it again until the gravity gets severe enough to where you have to cancel out and be able to cash out. So you'll see a lot of these crouch C loops. That's going to be a theme with not just this character, but it's one that is prominently featured for him. So the idea of, again, jump canceling and taking advantage of that 4-frame pre-jump frame and canceling it into other attacks. A tap up, and in this case, a crouch C. And this is very rhythm intensive. It's something you have to get used to, especially when you consider the gravity scaling. So it's not just a consistent rhythm, it's consistently getting faster and faster and faster in between reps. Now, the next character that I want to focus on is Ryder. This is another popular, really strong character in this game, and one reason why is that her Okizeme is really where she shines. You know, she has decent movement speed as well, and can pseudo zone with her chains, but the real catch with her is, again, the Okizeme, and I want to show you why and how. She'll end combos with this chain throw attack that, depending on where you are in the stage, you might want to side swap to be able to put the opponent in the corner. And it also depends on what your combo starter is. But she can combo into this. In fact, it's a pretty consistent loop for her. And we'll get to the lead up to that why. But what I want you to take notice is how the camera moves. If you just hold up like that, the camera doesn't focus on the player who's knocked down, so it can make it visually. There's a lot of lack of visual clarity sometimes in terms of how you're waking up in proximity to her. This makes her mix-up game on Wake Up very strong. It's a visual kind of mix-up like that. Not only that, but you also have to worry about her tools. She has a dive kick. It's really good. Not only that, she can combo into that from grab. So you're worried about getting grabbed, you're worried about getting tagged low, you're worried about all these things that can reset and loop into that Okazeme. Now, one consistent trait of her combo theory is going to be this. She has a DP, right? So by now you should already be kind of thinking, okay, DP, it is jump cancelable. Okay, so by now you're getting drilled on this, right? Another special that she has is input by forward, back, forward. So, if you know that your DP is jump cancelable, and you know that another special that you have is forward, back, forward, quiz time. How would you slide an up input into forward, back, forward? This is how. And this is one reason why Ryder is really strong. These loops, she has different variations of them. One, like, for example, there's one where she goes DP into DP. There's one where she goes into her kick loops like this. But the point is, you're going to be getting big juggles into the chain, into the Oki. And it's going to loop if she gets another hit. The last character that I want to give a brief overview of is Archer. And I think he's one of the coolest characters in this game. And part of the reason why is just because of the way that they took his skills and abilities in the series. You could tell, again, the developers had so much fun making this game and that they were really fans of this series because of this character and the way that they developed him. So, one easy way to kind of point that out is his super and the way it's implemented in this game. So, you can look at the bottom left corner of your screen. You see that there are those 3 crosses with blades. Basically, he has a super where he doesn't do anything to the opponent. He chants a line of an incantation of a poem that he has. And your goal is, over the course of a game, multiple rounds, that carry over 2 rounds, you want to get that chant off 6 times. And once you do, you're able to access Unlimited Blade Works. Unlimited Blade Works will give him some special blade specials that he can cancel into to be able to extend combos. Then also he has a finishing attack with it as well. The background changes, the music changes. It's that shit, more or less. In addition to that, he is a stance character. If you want to think about like Gen from Street Fighter or any character that can kind of like gain access to different movesets, he's a stance character. So for example, he fights with these blades, right? He has a projectile attack with them. He has a DP, which is jump cancelable, right? Ding, ding, ding. That should set off an alarm right there. But the way you change into his bow mode, which gives him a completely different set of normals, completely different set of specials, different supers, is you do down, down, C. Now, pop quiz. If you wanted to cancel DP into stance change, how do you think you would do that? How would you slide an up input into a down-down motion? We'll find out later. Hold that thought. We'll get back to that later. But that's Archer in a nutshell. He's pretty cool. Now, you just peeked behind the curtain and saw a little bit about what this game really is. And we'll get to more of these shortly, but what I want you to imagine is trying to hit some of these combo sequences on another live human opponent who is trying to do the same to you. This was the reality of players in 2009. And now I want to tell the story about the competitive community behind Fate Unlimited Codes. Dead game? You won't even find this game on Steam charts, baby. And you're right about that. Northern Lion? See, he was dunking on Hunter x Hunter, but he can't talk about this game that way. They get at least double digits sometimes.
You should try Nen Impact. Is Nen Impact a move? Or is Nen Impact a fighting game that you deem superior, but it has like 8 players? Hold? The latter, okay. I mean, this isn't my first day on this website, so you gotta know that I know what you're doing.
But seriously, to talk about this game's competitive history, you have to talk about Super Battle Opera. See, during the 2000s, even into the early 2010s, competitive calendars for fighting games were generally pretty simple. There was EVO, Final Round, NEC, Seasons Beatings, and then you had other regional events that were kind of spread across EU, NA, LATAM, in between, right? Competitive infrastructure at this time wasn't nearly as developed as it is today. So globally speaking, it usually worked out to where you were kind of just like looking at EVO, and then immediately after, SBO Togeki. SBO Togeki for a long time before the emergence of EVO Japan was the JP community's national tournament. At this time, there might randomly be some big official events put on by some publishers or other large events, but most of the competitive tournaments in Japan are run out of arcades in this era. Japan lacks the hotel and hotel ballroom culture that you can so easily find in some other regions. So once a year, this was the call to arms for all those players across multiple titles to unite and compete in one arena. The catch: you had to qualify to make it into the finals for SBO. How do you do that? You had to go to a qualifier, which would be held at arcades throughout the country, and win the tournament hosted there. This meant you had players traveling all over the country to random arcades, sometimes even out in the countryside, just to win that ticket. SBO had a lot of issues and problems, and I even got to go to the last one in 2012, and I chronicled it in this video here. Check it out if you get bored sometime. It was sometimes mismanaged even in terms of brackets. Like, for example, there was one year when the international qualifiers, so imagine this, you get on a plane and you're traveling to different countries, and you show up thinking that you have your spot in the bracket you're about to play. Well, what if they had one team too many in the bracket? So players who traveled across the globe to come to this event were told when they got there, they had to play each other to decide who could compete in the final bracket. Anyway, the format would often be first to one, single limb, carrying the spirit of arcade culture in Japan. This is obviously a blight for competitive players traveling across the globe to play a first to one and just be out in less than 3 minutes. This occurrence was actually so common that it became something of an expectation almost, and a meme as the event went on. And peep the video I made for more on that. But this event was also, to be honest with you, great for a few reasons. For one, created the race for nationals in Japan. Whatever titles were selected that year to be main SBO titles, players would team up, travel out, and seek to qualify with great sense of urgency. This resulted in some players having to defend their turf, so to speak, from invaders from big cities. Stories and rivalries developed this way. This got tons of players to connect nationally through the arcades and support those arcades for weeks leading up to the event. Furthermore, many of these events were run as teams, or both gave us the opportunity to see the games played at the highest level in unique ways that in some cases offered different dynamics from their single entry character variety. So for example, Guilty Gear, right? In a 1v1 bracket, maybe a character like Potemkin, you don't expect him to make it towards the end. Even if the player is really good, it's just kind of hard just because of how you have to perform with that character and how his matchups go. But in a team tournament, that character as essentially a piece on a chessboard, he has a unique and different kind of value that he would have in that format versus a single. This also led to epic team-ups of some of your favorite players. For example, check out some of these vids if you haven't seen them before. But because of how the system works, qualifying was the real honor, especially since some of these titles in Japan boasted very high bracket density, where players who traveled were really good. And every year the game rotation would feature a mix of established popular titles in the arcades, domestically, and newly published titles, right? So for the trajectory for some games, through this event, one common trend that you could see is, for example, let's look at SBO 2009. This is the year we're looking at, right? Fate Unlimited Codes and Tatsunoko vs. Capcom were new titles featured that year. For some titles that get put on, there's almost like a sense that you know that they're going to be run that 1 year and not anymore after. So everyone goes super hard on that game for that 1 year. Then after that, the game kind of just has its own like small core base after that. And those people will continue to play it, but maybe the other players will kind of leave it behind. Or maybe the game stays on the lineup and it continues to just have its small community continue to play like that. Capcom Fighting Jam is another good showcase of this, where you had Daigo and Mago pushing the game to its limit, then immediately dropping the game after, and that game essentially fades into obscurity forever. With the announcement of Fate Unlimited Codes as a main event title for SBO 2009, so began the Great Holy Grail War. Now, there are two themes with this game that SBO emphasized. With Acho at the core, this game was run by West Japan. That's not to say other regions didn't play it, it's just that this game for some reason just had the guys in West Japan, just Osaka, Kyoto, Nagoya, they ran this shit hard. There was just something about this game that really resonated with players in that region on a spiritual level. This game was especially appealing to multi-game players, specifically Melty Blood and Arc System Works titles like Guilty Gear and BlazBlue. A lot of the names that people were looking at going into this SBO were littered with multi-game players who had reputations in those titles. So for example, 2008 SBO BlazBlue champion Fumo definitely was a name they were looking at in this bracket. Spike, Guilty Gear Slayer player. In addition, you had players like Kubo and Mike who were featured in interview content leading up to the event, talking about the appeal of the game and their respective chances in the bracket. Kubo in particular had a cool line about how, because this was the kind of game that's really violent with a lot of big attacks and strings and combo sequencing, it can be hard to be consistent, but for him, he thrives in those kinds of games and environments, so he can find stability in it. Kubo mentions that he felt that he had really good chances of being able to make top stages in 2 games that year, since he also qualified for Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, which was run the same day. Now, although he got the nod from those who know ball, most of the analysts on ESPN had their eyes on a different competitor. Enter 138, aka Emiya, aka Masayan. From the perspective of a player from overseas like me, this dude was a monster. Acho was consistently uploading footage and tournaments of the game where all the dudes from West Japan and Nagoya and Osaka and Kyoto and the spots in between would show up, and he seemed to push this game to its limits through a few characters. A lot of the loops and big boy combos that you become familiar with, he was executing these just standard very early on. Me personally, I can remember the first time I saw the Archer combos that he was hitting, and we'll get to those later. It was him in a match hitting these on people. It was insanity. I was so excited to see this dude compete with Archer, only to see that when it came time to play, he went straight to the easy access top tier to run Lancer. In addition to execution and game sense, he is very well known to be wily with invincible attacks, so the Bupanashi style. Given that, if you had any doubts that this guy was about his business, he qualified through one of the hardest qualifiers, debatably, out of Athena Nippon Bashi. This arcade alongside game Acho in Kyoto is one of the most famous to ever exist, and early on got on the train of uploading footage. For years, if there was a new release in arcades, this was a valuable resource for checking out higher levels of play. It actually just closed down earlier this year, and I went with some friends to drop some last coins in it. Look forward to a video on that in the near future, and yes, I burned my last coin in Acho on Fate Unlimited Codes. Given the chaotic nature of the game and the kinds of players that a game built like this would attract, just qualifying for SBO was meaningful, and it meant that you had a chance in this game, especially in first to one single limb. Some other players with buzz around them going into the main event were Chinmi, a rider player qualified from Chiba Prefecture who had a really good combo execution and the ability to win with strong Okizeme play. If he can perform under pressure, they thought that he stood a great chance of winning. Mia, an East Japan player who was one of the earliest qualifiers in dominant fashion. Contrary to what you might think from a character with armor, big moves, and attacks that move him around a lot, he wins with clean, polite neutral. Excellent combo execution and a really high win rate. Can he prove on the big stage that Berserker is the correct answer? Kuroda, no, not that one. Alongside Shimi, this was the other Chiba representative that was in the bracket, but considered by many to be the best rider. Boosting great execution and neutral that, though passive, seized the moment. to take knockdowns and run angry Oki. Even high-ranking characters like Gilgamesh and Lancer will fall if he's able to find the knockdown. The final bracket for SBO 2009 would have 32 spots, with 2 spots being decided by LCQ, and 30 stores in Japan hosting qualifiers. You can see some of the average stats for each store here. Lancer and Berserker are the 2 characters that littered the bracket, with 30% of the bracket being filled by those just players of those 2 characters. After that, there's a more balanced spread of Rider players and Sabers and Gilgamesh, Rin, Shiro, and of course Caster too. All these were also popular picks. And so, on August 15, 2009, players from all over Japan descended upon JCB Hall to decide who would be the national champion of Fate Unlimited Codes. Round 1 begins with a lot of the favorites progressing to the top 16. Imiya starts his run against Torinotate in a Lancer mirror. Imiya says this one came down to him just converting from pokes and punishes in round 1, and in round 2, he found the lows and reads to pull off the win on his opponent. There are a few reasons why you can see this character was so highly valued at this point in the game. Lancer's range, especially his ability to go airborne while moving forward to connect with his air fireball B. When done close to the ground, this attack allows him to convert off of it as a high attack. Thus, the threat of having the long range overhead with the lows makes him a very, very stressful character to fight and deal with in this kind of game. From there, in top 16, he had to face off against another one of the featured players in publications leading up to this event, Miya Berserker. This was the opponent that Imiya most wanted to avoid in bracket, as he recalled it was a very sloppy match that he miraculously somehow won. He doesn't even remember a specific reason how or why, but nonetheless, he moved on to top 8. From top 16 on to top 8, 3 of the players that remained were Rider players. This was kind of an unexpected call, but not only that, the 2 characters most considered favorites to win the event, Lancer and Gilgamesh, only one of each remained. Imiya running Lancer and Spike running Gilgamesh. You know, at the end of the day, man, you could talk about tiers all you want to, but you got to play the best on that day. And in this case, looking at that last bracket, Rider players were roaches. Imiya's opponent in the quarterfinals was none other than Kuroda, one of the other 2 Rider players mentioned before. And so the match opens up, and it looks like Kuroda might get off the camera mix-up Oki loop, but Imiya says nope, immediate reversal. Returns to neutral, and Kuroda gets stop sign, conversion. Imiya punishes the wake-up backdash to take the round. Round 2 looks like Kuroda is finally going to get another chance to set play, but Imiya got a tip from another player that this guy likes to throw on Oki. So what does he do? He said he was going to commit to the backdash if he gets in that situation. And he's going to throw in those situations if he didn't do reversal. All according to plan. It's a throw. Kuroda then gets another shot only to uncharacteristically drop this combo. Imiya reads the offense from Kuroda, the fadeaway jump shot this dude, convert it. Then an Oki gives him the respect just to instant overhead him and cement his spot in semifinals. Imiya went from one rider to the next, with the other rider left in the bracket at this point being Chinmi. Chinmi made it here with calm neutral that took advantage of his consistent execution to get return from good judgment calls and pokes up until this point. But Imiya's pace and a little bit of luck made it difficult for him to get anything started in the first round. He makes up for this in round 2 though, able to knock Imiya down and convert hits into wall carry, kick loops, Okizeme sequences that did work. And then round 3 happens. Imiya doubles down. You're going to take this overhead if you give me the space and the time. And he does it not once, but twice, and then DPs in his face for the win.
昇竜でフォロー。これが意味やか、これがランサーか。このゲージは殺しに来た。 A 昇竜 A 昇竜 A 昇竜 C 昇竜からゲイボルグ。
On the other side of the bracket, Spike, a West Japan-based Guilty Gear player known for being a bit of a wild boy with his playstyle, especially his Slayer in Guilty Gear, was the sole remaining Gilgamesh in the bracket, and he had some impressive wins over Yoiko Caster and Mike Rin, eliminating another East Japan Guilty Gear rival. This set the stage for the grand final, Spike versus Emiya, an Osaka man whose impenetrable neutral is only rivaled by his pride. Spike Gilgamesh versus the genius of observation, Emiya Lancer. Round 1 has a big moment where you are reminded this is a 3D game. Sidestep converted into wall carry and a knockdown. Spike gets hit by mids on Oki to eat a lot of damage and carry back the other way, just for the round to end in familiar fashion. Overhead from mid-range. Round 2 starts. Spike, no doubt a Slayer player, backdashes. Unfortunately for him, Emiya did DP and eclipsed him out of recovery. Spike tries to swing on Wake Up, but Emiya was one step ahead, jumping over him and using that Lancer range to convert a whip punish into almost 4k damage and wall positioning. A brief pause. Wait. And after trying to reposition after a blocked attack with the backdash, this gives Emiya the perfect range and moment to do what everyone knows is coming. And with that, SBO 2009 for Fate Unlimited codes, and Masayan's name is forever etched into the history books as the winner of the largest official tournament for the game, and its first and last official champion. Since then, Fate Unlimited Codes has mostly been hosted at annual get-togethers for players that still play it. These events are sometimes run as singles, sometimes as teams, but the idea is everyone practices up, taps in for that one time a year as an excuse to go play, get food after, and enjoy the sense of community and competition and fun that the game offers. For love of the game, the same players that pull up to events like Game Acho, Atena Nippon Bashi, the Seihai Senso Holy War series, but especially KSB 2017 through 2022. Those who know ball know I had front row seats every year. What the fuck is going on? What the fuck are we watching? I don't remember this shit. Players like Masayan, Kamaboko, and Yama, who would consistently finish at the top of these events over the years. Masayan in particular also grew to become a big reason why West Japan was so competitive in Dragon Ball FighterZ for a time, with him opening up his house for a lot of those guys to come over and practice. On the other side of the pond, you had the typical East Coast guys up there in Tri-State, and they were going hard in this game too, and a lot of those guys were multi-game players as well. Most often, official publisher support for titles like these, for one reason or another, is usually lacking. Thus, communities usually drive games like these. No financial support, no massive prize pools, no tours, just grassroots competition driven by love of the game. Now, PlaySpot Big won second in various random community events every once in a while. And to be honest, for a game in its sunset years, forgotten the time before netplay even really existed consistently, with little to no demand or hope for a modern port, if you really think about it, man, what more could you ask for? So now that you know a little bit about the game's competitive history, I want to focus on the real reason why I wanted to make this video. The challenge. One of the holy grails of fighting game execution. The Fate Unlimited Codes 100% mission mode clear. You ever seen Indiana Jones? You know the story of Ishmael? Only cultured people are subscribed here, so I'm sure y'all do. Well, if I'm Captain Ahab, this is my Moby Dick. If I'm Sean Connery, then fuck mission mode. 100% clear may indeed be my last crusade. Before the concepts of platinum trophies or achievements were even a thing, really, I only really felt super compelled to maximize game completion on whims, kind of just based on my mood. For fighting games, this usually meant just unlocking every character and unlocking all the possible content before you sunset the game by just randomly booting it up to spark joy or to play when friends from around the neighborhood would just come through. For that reason, games from this era before established net play integration often had to pad their packages with single-player content under the assumption that players would not always have access to other players. and this created a means for players to engage with the game in spite of that. So look, I get that I'm an old person talking very passionately about a very obscure 18, 19-year-old fighting game, right? But let me Abe Simpson a little bit harder, real quick. One disconnect that I think older fighting game players might have with the newer gen is how they can often take things for granted. So, for example, we're not even talking about the package of this game. Like, there's no net play in this. This is before net play was really even commonplace. But I want to talk about the nature of even being able to play this game back in the day. You got to understand, in this era where we have like global Steam releases, simultaneous region releases for games, and there's no region locking or anything like that. Back then, to play a new fighting game release from Japan, if it wasn't going to have an overseas version, you had to put in work, man. So like for even like PlayStation 1, you had to get your system mod chips and all this other kind of crazy shit. You had to go find somebody that knew how to do that even, or a store that wasn't like official, you know what I mean? In the case of PlayStation 2, you had a few different methods as well. One was running Free McBoot, I think was the name of the software, off of a memory card. The method I used, I had to go to some guy's house in Metairie one time, and he hooked me up with a Swap Magic system. So what that was on a PS2 Slim, what you had to do was, this is going to sound like an old person trying to explain Blockbuster to Zoomers. So you had to have a dummy disc that you put in your PlayStation 2 Slim. You had to stuff tissue into the corners of the PS2 Slim so that when you close the disc tray, the system thinks it's closed, but you really have access to the disc still. So the dummy disc would spin, and then it would be time for you to swap onto the real disc. You would lift the tray open, pop the real disc in, and then you would be able to play your game. The point being, to play fighting games that came out without overseas releases like that back in the day, you had to put in work. And the way it worked out was, you pull up to the regional or you pull up to your local event, and if you even found 2 or 3 other people that knew how to play the game, you knew on some level they were invested. And you can say whatever you want about the numbers. You can Steam chart post. You can't Steam chart post this game. You can't do it. Literally, you cannot. But the cool thing was knowing like, oh man, these people really wanted to play the game too. You know what I mean? They wanted to, for real, they wanted to play the game. There's a sensation there that maybe gets lost in translation throughout generations. But anyway, nowadays you can just head over to the Mizumi Wiki, which is where you can find a lot of great information. I mean, all the info about this game is on that wiki. If it's not on there, you have to talk to somebody who knows better, and we'll get to that later. But for now, just head over to the wiki if you want to be able to get access to play the game now. It's mad easy. Just go to the wiki and read, and I'll link it in the description below. But sometimes I don't know what it was, man. You ever just feel compelled from something, just drawn to a game to a point where it evokes the desire to overcome, to conquer? I've always said fighting games are best enjoyed with other people, but you know a fighting game is really good when you can play it by yourself and be just as entertained. Ever since the first time I popped this game onto my PS2 Slim with tissue stuffed in the corners so I could keep the top tray open to run the swap disc, this game called to me in a way that I could not refuse. To beat it, after unlocking everything, which is usually the condition to beat most pre-net play integrated fighting games, there is but one condition that I could think of that you clear this game, and that's to get 100% on its mission mode. As far as single-player content goes in fighting games, this is one that is uniquely robust, diverse, and probably one of the most challenging in the genre. Alongside the other heavenly kings of execution, I think about games like KOF 13, H&K, those kinds of execution fetish titles. Each character not only has 3 combo trials, which vary from beginner to sometimes hyper advanced, though not necessarily optimal. They then test your understanding on a character's combo theory by giving you a certain amount of meter or resources and tasking you with producing a combo that clears a certain damage benchmark. Not only that, but they have tons of original character unique mini-games, and a lot of story or lore-based scenario clears. In some cases, the game would even just turn into a original full-range 3D arena-style combat title. And I say all that to say this. The team that made the mission mode for these characters in this game makes me recall stuff like JoJo's The Fighting Game, DBFZ, Marvel vs. Hokuto no Ken, in that while you're playing the game, you can tell that the team that made this loved the source material. You could tell they're fans. You can feel the fun they had making the game through the game. To this degree, this is a feeling that in fighting games has become, I think, a little bit rare and fewer and further between for me. I want to highlight and showcase that some of these missions, it's not just about the execution, it's bigger than that. These developers were fans of the source material, really. It's about love and appreciation for the story, for the characters, and designing a fighting game experience that would resonate with real fans. It's not just about doing something or hitting, doing this attack and hitting a pose. In some cases, it's about the TLC. It's about the little things. This music change, this attack or scenario that references a character's entire story arc or a key moment in the franchise. In my younger years, I remember playing this for hours, driven by the dopamine of seeing the numbers go up as you clear trial by trial. I remember going to LSU one weekend and going to a dormitory where people were grinding the mission mode, and all of us out there on our journey to see those golden numbers. I don't remember specifically when, but I remember hitting a wall. Then eventually the PS3 came out, my PS2 broke or something like that, and before you know it, the game and the journey was nothing but a memory. Lost, defeated, but not quite forgotten. Nah, those kinds of defeats you rarely forget. In fact, I still have my collector's edition box to this day. So I decided earlier this year, I wanted to finish what was started. I wanted to do it on stream, something that no one has ever done. So before I set out on my bike trip, I booted up, and this time, determined to see the challenge through to the end. A better man than I was before, a grizzled veteran now. I would no longer be intimidated by the demands. If nothing else, I still have faith in my ability to adapt, to learn, to execute, to overcome, to persevere, to rise to the occasion, to achieve. And so with that, the game was on. Now what's fun about the way these challenges are presented is that for each character, the first few combo missions will teach you different puzzle pieces or lessons of a character's combo theory. You can then freely apply these to take on the bar challenges where you're tasked with clearing a certain amount of damage. Some of the routes and combos that the game teaches you are real combos too, based on what players were actually doing in arcades at that time, though maybe not necessarily the optimal versions of it. So the whole time you're doing a character's trials, there's a couple of thoughts that'll settle in the back of your mind. What's going to be the minigame? Some of them are really hype. What's going to be the main combo theory concept for this character? Where is my TK cancel going to be? What's going to be the fun mission? Is this going to be one where it turns into an original arena, 3D arena game, or what are they going to do? And then finally, how can I push this combo even further than what the game is originally suggesting? That said, let's take a look at the characters, their trials, and how I cleared them. First up, I want to look at Kotomine. He's an interesting example and a good one for kind of describing the mindset behind these combo trials, right? So Combo 3 showcases some key ideas in his combo theory. And when you go to his Damage 4 combo, which will ask you to get 8,000 damage, right? Basically, you're just taking parts of that third combo trial, which is the more advanced one, and you're trying to add parts to the beginning using Reflect Cancel and Magic Burst to extend the string to where before you do the Grail Super, you do 4,000 damage. The reason why is because the Grail Super will do 4,000 damage unscaled in the combo no matter what. So really, to do 8,000 damage, it's just you're trying to problem solve for how can I do 4,000 damage before the super. So it took me a few hours to get the routing for this, but eventually I landed on using his Stomp attack, which isn't a commonly used attack for him. He's a command grab and kind of mix-up based character, but Stomp, for some reason, because of the stun that it opens up for in the beginning, kind of allows you to cheat and gives you almost like a third rep to where I was able to get over the damage bar and get the 4,000 damage and then use the super to clear. His minigame is maybe one of the more infamous in the game. It's the Mapo Tofu. The way I would describe it is like, imagine you're taking a ball and you're throwing it up at the ceiling. You want it to get as close to the ceiling as possible without touching. That's what this minigame is. You want to consume all of the tofu, but you want to pump the brakes to the point where it doesn't kill him. The spice, it's too spicy, right? So you kind of have to finesse his eating speed in a way that kind of takes into account the damage that you'll take from the spice. It's a pretty fun one, and it's a funny mini game. But again, it's one of those things where it's like the people who made this game know and love the series and the source material, and you can feel that through the game. Next is Bazett, and I kind of liken her to Iron Golem. You really gotta work the legs a little bit, work the body, right? Also, Shaheen from Tekken stole her whole flow bar for bar, man. That's the way the supers line up is crazy to me. This is one of the first ones where the combo list has to actually scroll like it's KOF 13 too, so it kind of has that like oh shit effect. But it's mostly just because of the way her kit is. She's a complex character, and maybe she suffers a little bit for it, but this is one of the new characters that they added for the console version. And as far as boxing kind of characters go, she's pretty cool actually. Her third combo trial teaches you a few key concepts that can be difficult to execute. And one thing that it highlights is when you're going from a forward C attack, a 6C, into a fireball special, that means you have to return to neutral and hit it clean, or you're going to get a DP. So the fireball special has a follow-up that buffs her kick attacks. But you can actually link her standing B after that install, which you use to continue the combo in the juggle sequences. The next challenge is linking the air C dive kick into her weaving attack, which actually has a 3D step component to it. It has built-in movement. So because of this, the stage can actually interfere with the combo. And so the weak version goes in a clockwise direction before unleashing the follow-up blow, which you have to use the magic burst and leverage all of your super meter by doing 3 level 1 supers. And that took me about an hour and 20 minutes to get that one down, and that's just her third combo trial, right? That's the harder one. Her damage 4 combo, the strategy that I used to clear this one was that, see, in Bazett's case, when you activate her magic burst with full meter, it gives the buff to her kick attacks and her punches from the start of the combo. So to do the 4,000 damage that you need, that's required, right, to be able to get the 8,000 damage clear, I simply activated it from the start and did an adjusted combo route that we learned in the third combo trial, and the damage buff was enough to tick it over 4,000 to where I could just do the super. The weave, rush punches, and then super, and I won. Her minigame was a one-stage side-scrolling beat-em-up, and her techniques are a bit obscure, but she's a really cool character, especially because I think the last conditional scenario clear that they ask you to do is a direct reference to her story in the game, where she has a super it's a super parry. If other people do supers to you, you do this super to parry their super. But she still dies in the animation. It's like really detailed, like you have to know the story kind of thing. But she's pretty cool. Hers were pretty cool. The next character that I want to talk about is Lancer, who I kind of liken to the Taurus demon. He's like a really good eye into the greater evils of the game. He's a top tier threat for the game for most of its lifespan. I think even now he's still considered one of the best, just because of the reach. He has like half screen lows. He has and the ever-present threat of his overhead as well, both of which he can combo after. And so when you're doing his combos, I think he has probably one of the more fun mission modes, actually. His combo theory is actually not so hard. The TK cancel for him is not terribly difficult either. In fact, I think the hardest part is threading the needle from the air with that jump B. It's a timing thing, and hitting the 6C into the fireball motion clean. But once you can do that, it's just about optimizing the beginning of his route, and that's enough to clear his damage trials. His combo 3 does a good job of kind of teaching you some theory. And in my opinion, he has one of the more memorable mini games in Kick the Baby. Smash Brothers, eat your heart out. Leysritt is a unique, I guess kind of weird character in this game. But I guess if you're going to liken her to a boss, it'd be like Bed of Chaos or something, or Ceaseless Discharge or something like that. But she's a low HP character who has a pommel, which gives her a bit of reach, with some disjointed hitbox attacks, and some of which have built-in mobility to move her around the screen. But what makes her stand out is her install, which can give her armor and allow her to tank hits to get a grab, which links into her quarter circle back C. So you can play her as a kind of like a ghetto grappler kind of way, think like that. And you can also use it to start other attacks as well. But her combo trial 4 routing had me do a series of TKDP juggles, and I looped those for a few reps, and then canceled that into a super, and then into a Grail super to clear the 8k. And it took me a while, but mostly because the timing of the TKDPs into a super, it just took me a while to hit everything back to back like that. And then eventually you get to the point where you have to do the Grail super, but it has to be at the right time on the right specific hit of that attack. Immediately on the 3rd hit specifically, and it has to be a clean input. Her minigame is like a weird version of Earthworm Jim 2 Peter Puppy level. It's kind of funny, like she's cleaning out her closet, man. It's a goofy one. It's not so hard, but it's funny nonetheless. Depending on your build and when you encounter him, the Capra Demon can be a nightmare. Zero Lancer is actually not that bad, and I kind of think of him as that fitting that role. His combo routing and structure is actually not super involved. It isn't so much the difficulty of the inputs, but it's about his timing and the precision that he takes. It's some difficulty to it. It took me some time to finesse it. For example, in his combo 3 trial, this multi-stab attack requires strict timing to connect after the RC and activation cancels, and getting the first rep of his jump loop after gave me some trouble, but I eventually settled on this route to clear it. This character's trials highlight the variety and the diversity of difficulty that fighting game combos can present to a player. And so in this example, his 3rd combo trial has you using a lot of his command movement. He has like a command step with follow-ups out of it, so he has built-in mobility in that regard. But the options require good manual timing. You have to understand when you have recovered from the movement portion of the attack, and you have to act as soon as possible. It makes some of these links very tight. And since it starts off of a throw, and because of how his attacks interact with airborne opponents, on this stage with uneven walls, it took a lot of manipulation to force the dummy to a specific area of the stage where the wall is at a certain angle to ensure that you can consistently get the sequence that I got. And his combos are cool though, and they can be fun to do, but he's like the hardest easy character. It was like weirdly frustrating, but really cool character. Shiro was kind of a standard character. His combo 3 and his damage 4, they took me a while, but just because of the ending sequence really it's kind of tricky. Basically, you just have to juggle with his fireballs, and you have to find the right sequencing with the A version of his fireballs linked into his C buttons. It wasn't hard, just kind of finicky, and it just took me a long time. I guess I was just being bad. His minigame though, Berserker, this was a really fun one. Almost kind of like a hybrid shmup style. It's kind of difficult to explain, but it's pretty fun in its own right. So she's the main character of the series, but I liken her more towards the Four Kings fight. And the reason why is if you know a particular trick, then it's really easy to get over her damage 4 trial, which was her hardest. And so remember how I said that certain characters get buffs when they activate Grail Max with full meter? Well, Saber's reveals her true sword. That's a lore reference. And the effect is she gets additional hit stun on attacks. This allows for you to do essentially like it's a loop, but it's only during the duration of this period, and it lasts for a long time. So I just did this time-locked loop that she can do, and it's pretty easy. There's no TKs. It's just fireballs, really. So I used that to cheese the damage to get the 4K, then did the super to clear it. Yo, it's not just for this combo on Saber either, by the way. But shoutouts to Ray. Ray is probably one of the, like, few dozen people who speak English who know what's up with this game. He came through mad times during this mission mode run, so big ups to Ray. So Sakura, relative to the rest of the cast, I kind of liken her to Pinwheel, just because she's not really difficult. She's not even that annoying, just like a little bit annoying. But relative to the rest of the cast that you're going to have to deal with, she's overall not that bad. And part of it is because she has a loop that you can master that will make her combo trial 3 and her damage trials relatively easy to progress through. And the loop fundamentally is her crouch C canceled into reverse DP. That reverse DP, again, that should trigger an alarm. Reverse DP, and then you're going to Tiger Knee a reverse fireball input. So you're going 2-1-4-7, essentially. And you just loop that. And like some of the other loops in the game, the rhythm is going to change through the combo progressively to become faster and faster. But overall, she's not that bad, man. She's probably one of the easier characters to clear, I want to say. Her combo 3, I will say this, the cancel into the super at the end of combo 3 is ridiculously fast. You have to do that super mad quick off of a Tiger Knee reverse fireball. But other than that, she's not that bad at all. Gravelord Nito, if I had to pick one character that matched up with this boss, it would be Dark Saber. So her damage 4 trial, I was able to clear because she has a highly situational, spacing sensitive, you need a wall, infinite. And I was able to front load about 2.4k damage before banging out her hard-hitting supers to clear the 8k. Not hard at all, really.
Shoot that animal.
Her combo 3, however, has you do a fat combo off her command grab, with the hardest part being the OTG. To be honest with you, I still don't really understand it, and why it took me so long to do. I think the distance between the start of the combo, between you and your opponent at the start of the combo, makes a big difference, and it helped me get a little bit more consistent. This comes into play especially when you have to do the TKDPs. The activation and air sequence took a couple tries, but overall, once you know the trick, it wasn't too bad. Overall, cool character though, and look, if you've seen the Obama Tales origin story, then you know I have a soft spot for Ken Griffey Jr. based video games, right? So she has one of the coolest mini games because it takes me right back to the home run derby. Berserker's trials have a lot of conditional story reference clears, and it even has a 3D free roaming like arena fighter type of game where you have to run away from Gilgamesh as Ilyasville, and you pray and give like soft commands to Berserker, and you just have to pray that he kills Gil before Gilgamesh can get to you. And he also has it's basically its Third Strike Sean parry minigame, but with like some rhythm game mechanics as well. Like you get chain combos and you're judged based on how tight the parry window that you hit was against the caster goons. It's harder than it looks, but it's actually a pretty fun minigame. It's pretty good. But to me, when I think about the gargoyles, they represent, like, you know, double trouble, right? And so I've already gone over Berserker and some fundamental aspects of his combo game in theory earlier in the video, and that's how his combo trial 3 works. Basically, it's going to emphasize those two concepts with unjumping and Tiger Knee DP. So after activating the magic burst off the initial string into a launch state, you do 9 jump canceled crouch heavy attacks. And to do this, you just have to tap up during the 2C on hit, then quickly come back down, get the next one. It's fast, it gets faster as you go, but you also have to keep track of how many you've done because you want to cancel the last one into that Tiger Knee DP motion and then finally connect with the super at the end. So one of the more infamous top tier characters in this game, so I matched him up with one of the top tier boss fights, ONS, Double Trouble, and similar. Gilgamesh is a stance character as well. I mentioned this earlier, but you want to think characters like Gen, Lei from Tekken, any character that has like radically different stances that changes their moveset. And so one sword stance, one of his stances is based around link timing, whereas the other one, where he can put you with the chains, is more like pseudo zoning. And he fights with a scythe, and it's more about like button input press. So like, for example, there's like down C, and then you press the C again. It's not like a link, but it's just like an additional input. And switching between the two mid-combo can be disorienting a little bit sometimes. It's overall not too difficult, though. The cool thing is he has a deadly rave super. When I told you that the people making this game, they know ball, bro. They play fighting games. If you don't know, Geese in SNK games, he traditionally has Deadly Rave as one of his legacy supers where it's a manual super. You have to manually input the attacks in the super. And you have to do the same thing. Gilgamesh, they gave him his own deadly rave. And so it does a lot more damage than some of the other Grail supers as well. So I kind of use that to clear the damage requirement pretty easily, just by experimenting with some routing and then going into it. His combo 3 trial also wasn't too difficult outside of that stance change mechanic. And that's pretty much all there was to him. He's one of the top tier characters. He's mad cool design-wise. I think he's really well made, actually. Just as Artorias is one of the peak fights of Dark Souls 1, Assassin is secretly the peak of execution in this game. So remember the mindset we were talking about earlier. Where can you fit that up input? This is Assassin's Demon Slayer. It's a 646 plus attack input. So you're tapping forward, back, forward. This attack is his windmill. It's a reverse DP input. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yes. Now, for his damage 4 trial, if you didn't know, the game will even show you this was something people were doing in arcades by the time that this game came out. And so, the game suggests you to master this loop. But I actually just used the combo theory in the 3rd combo trial, which has you activate, then do crouch C, stand C, and you're doing, again, the unjumps, right? The jump, cancel, crouch C, then you loop it. Then I activated Grail Super. I just did a reflect cancel sequence into an activate and optimized it, built off the 3rd combo trial a bit, and it was enough to cheese the damage trial. I'm a coward. You can give me shit for it. It's way too hard, dude. I could get like 1 rep, but you got to do multiple reps of that, man. It is legit hard. Give it a shot if you think you're man enough. I was not. That shit is way too hard. But his minigame, though, is a Tsubame Gaishi reference. And, you know, it's fun for the weebs, but it's more challenging and random than it appears as well. Rin. When I fought Sif, I feel like I was just swinging on him. And I barely remember even why I won or why I did well against him when I played him. But in the same reason that you can kind of just brute force your way through the fight, the strongest girl in the universe, that's what Rin felt like.
Strongest in the universe!
Because she has a death fist just like Paul. And the way her death fist works is she has a just frame input on to create a follow-up shockwave hit. And once you know that, if you have a stage with a wall, it becomes a conditional infinite, where you can use the shockwave to set up the timing for the next death fist. And so, once I practiced and got the timing down, I kind of just used it to cheese all of her damage trials, kind of just being able to just loop that conditional infinite for fun. And it was actually pretty cool. And her combo trials also are pretty fun, actually. They're like active. They're not frustratingly difficult. She's actually one of the more fun characters to clear, in my opinion. She's pretty cool. Next, we'll talk about the Quelaag of the game for me. This was Caster, and her combo trial 3 was a kind of like a rough gatekeeper for me. And the reason why is because it combos difficulty with like juggle height management, and there's one final trick to the end. And that was mostly just to do that super at the end, right? The super has to be so fast that if you try to do it normally, it won't combo. The trick that worked for me was cross-cutting the super input in the very end, combining the teleport input with the first motion of the super input, and then immediately doing the quarter circle in the opposite direction so that it counts for the double quarter circle forward input in the super. And it was really annoying because I did it once, and then my computer crashed before I could save. so I had to do it again. And this took me like hours, man. This is one of the roughest. This is like a 10-hour stream, I'm pretty sure. But we finally got it done. Her damage 3 and 4 combos were pretty easy to cheese because she has a very easy infinite loop. It's not hard at all. Didn't take me long to get. But she also has one of the coolest mini games. It's a love letter to shmups. Like I said, this team, they love arcade games. It's very evident. It's very clear. I couple this character with Assassin because they have a similar kind of combo theory idea. And so if I called him Artorias, I'll call Ryder Calamite, because now we're in endgame territory and it all comes down to foot loops, baby. So this is an infamous combo sequence in the game. We covered it a little bit earlier in the video. But the concept, again, is a 6-4-6, a forward-back-forward attack into a DP, which you're then going to Tiger Knee a forward-back-forward input and then loop it. And in the end, it comes down to timing, precision, but it's also like rhythm. The first rep is slower than the others, and then it gets progressively faster timing-wise. As the combo continues, it's pretty hard. This is not an easy input sequence to learn like Assassin, but this one felt like more manageable than the reverse DP Tiger Knees, but this is one that's going to take a lot of practice. This is not an easy loop to learn. Finally, we get to the bosses. So look, for those of you that brave the depths and go deep into the darkness of the Tiger Knee down input, you're going to get to Luvia. And don't be taken in by her smile. Appearances can be deceiving. And look, it makes me think about characters like Hinako from KOF, where the aesthetic designs for some of these games and the characters in them can be so deceiving. While she looks like a princess, right? She's got the Ojo-sama speech pattern, the Snow Bunny sweep, she's got zoning tools. This character is actually Marduk from Tekken. Like, look at her stance. Look at her. Bro, that's Marduk grapple stance. So from this stance, she actually can force a 50-50. She has a few options, right? The first one is not a true command grab. The opponent can tech the throw out of this stance. But for the B and C follow-ups, she'll leap at either their legs, where it's a hit grab that hits low, or the C version, which hits overhead. And so they both come out at the same speed, so in theory, it can be used as a 50-50. But the idea is this. You're going to cancel into this stance, Hunting Lady. She's trying to grip you up. And here's the key. There are 3 follow-ups that she can use once she gets you into, in the mount. She can either slap you up. You've probably seen that meme video online. By the way, look at this bitch-ass dude. Oh, I'm going to ask and be inquisitive. By the way, I'm not going to buy the system. Don't give a shit about you don't fuck with PlayStation 2, idiot. Anyway, Queen Slap. So what you have to know about this is each slap is a back or forward input. Obviously, you've seen the task video. Each slap deals 30 damage per hit, and then a big one, the final hit of it that ends the grapple sequence, deals 100 unscaled damage. With frame-perfect inputs, the most number of hits that can be reached is 27. Although, we're human, right? So, usually you can get like 18 to 20 for most human players. But either way, it's really humiliating for the opponent. And so, because of the difficulty of this, most people opt for the B follow-up, which is just where she kind of shoots you up with some magic, does a grip of damage, and you can link after. We'll get to that in just a moment. But the C follow-up, it's a command input, CBA, BC, ABC. She'll just pop them for 1,000 damage with the choke slam, bruh. And that's mostly used at the end of her touch of death sequence to be able to finish the opponent off. So now we'll talk a little bit about that. Basically, the way this character works is you're looking for a sequence where you can launch, then cancel the jump recovery, specifically after her ADP, which will launch characters, and it's jump cancelable on hit now. So, think about it. You have a down-down input. How do we Tiger Knee a down-down input? There are a couple ways. One option is to do down, up, down, C. The other option, well, the one that I ended up using, was down, down, up, C, very quickly. And so, once you do that, you grip them up with the overhead version of the grab. When you release the character, you have a brief moment to use her stand C to OTG them, connect that into sweep, DP them, and then loop it again. And this is a touch of death sequence. However, it's really hard. It's really hard. This took a lot of practice. And I had to consult the pros, man. There are not a lot of people that speak English or Japanese that play this character, play this game like that, right? So my friend LK, I hit him up for some advice. I was talking to Ray. I was like, man, where are the Luvia players? I need all the hints I can get. This is like almost like hitting Taunt Jet up in Tekken, where if you try to do it, you're going to get a shitload of advice from like a million people. Bro, ask the pros. They're going to have like one or two things to say. Then you got to just get in the lab and do it. So like harder like Blaze Blue, Guilty Gear, KOF 13 even, inspired execution. Once you learn the input system, the buffer, the shortcuts, and how you can abuse them, you might make harder execution stuff easier for you. So for example, for me, after getting all this advice from people like LK, who wanted to do this consistently back in the day, and a few other players, I think like Funky P was helping me out as well, what I ended up doing was I started to do it as stand C, late into the stand C, hit my forward input, then 2C, and then I would hit the down forward A. So I'm using my C buttons to buffer in my DP motion. So the DP comes out as fast as possible. And that gave me enough time to be able to, again with practice, hit that down, down, up, C clean. I started getting it way more consistent doing it this way. Just by clearing the buffer for the DP as fast as possible. By masking the inputs for the DP in my C buttons. Once I started to do this, it became way more consistent for me. And actually wasn't as hard as I thought, actually. But it's really fun actually to hit. It's this was a really difficult combo sequence to learn. And I used it basically to cheese out her damage trials. I say cheese out. I mean, you earned it at that point. But it only takes a few reps to really clear the damage bar for some of these. And this one, not gonna lie, this one took me some hours, definitely took a lot of practice, but it's also training for the final trial. Finally, the boss of the game. It was time. I made it this far. We went through the whole cast. And you know we have to save this character for last. We already touched on him earlier in the video. But this character, it's not even because he's one of the most execution-heavy characters in the game, but because he by far has some of the swaggiest looking sequences I've ever seen. Just look at this shit, man. He's a character that defines the game in my eyes. It isn't about tears. It's about launching a motherfucker, juggling them, stance changing in the combo while you spit bars on them, and then you show them what it means to live in your world. Then you make it rain on them. Just as Gwyn challenges your mastery of mechanics in the final fight of Dark Souls, so too does Archer challenge your mastery of down TK canceling, TKDPs. It's everything that you've learned in one combo sequence, and that's really what you're playing him for here at this point. And it's in the most brutal way possible. Like Mr. Leahy said, it's the combination of all these. It's the perfect shitstorm of difficulty.
Shit wins are coming.
So here, let's go one by one and explain why. First, a key concept here is, again, like we've explored with several other characters up until now, a DP that is jump cancelable that you want to cancel into his stance change. The reason why is because a key part of this combo theory is going to be launching them high enough for you to change from his sword mode into bow mode. From bow mode, you're going to pop them with that crouch C, that upwards arrow. Now, what makes this difficult is the arrow that you fire is jump cancelable, but based on when it hits the opponent. What that means is throughout this combo, as you pop them with arrows, the speed is going to be changing. So, that's the first thing, in addition to the Tiger Knee cancels. But the other thing that you should know is the stance change, going from sword to bow and bow to sword, have two different windows. They don't even cancel at the same time. One is 11 frames, one is 15 frames. So there's already multiple things that you're juggling at once. Furthermore, once you're able to get the Reality Marble activation, you can't drop the combo. The the point where it turns from cinematic back to you being in control can sometimes be a little bit hard to time. You have got to be able to maintain that juggle positioning and be able to execute and make it rain on him. But this combo took a lot of time and a lot of patience. And one reason why, too, is just because, again, when it comes down to the arrows, jump canceling those, and again, you have to remember, you're doing 2-2-8 is the method I was using. 2-2-8 on those stance cancels for each arrow like that. It's the fact that the rhythm it's a different rhythm per stance change, and then it's getting progressively faster. It's juggle height management. You've got it down for this timing, but now they're at this juggle height, so you have to constantly be adjusting and be fluid. You have to really just be able to get to the point where you can do the inputs at will, and then you just lock in and let it rip. But this was a really difficult combo sequence to hit, but man, I mean, you can hear in my voice, man. It's over! And then finally, I hit it. And it took me a long time, a lot of practice to be able to get this. But when I hit it, man, those golden numbers just felt very rewarding. Dark Souls is hype because you choose your path, you choose your fights, you choose your weapons, and without your hand being held, without mercy, you either rise to the occasion and overcome, or you fall to rise again. Execution in fighting games and the ability to do commands with speed, precision, rhythm, accuracy, that's an aspect of these games that has been continuously put under a microscope the past 15 to 20 years. Since the late 2010s, where more fighting game developers started to focus on quote-unquote accessibility, the concept of execution, and its role in these titles, it ultimately began to become downplayed or even outright removed in a lot of situations. And as a concept, I felt like for a while, there was a solid middle ground we had achieved, especially partnering it with quality of life changes like buffer windows, right? But now, I mean, we just had we have like 4 tag games coming out, and half of them are afraid to put in motion inputs. This Discord that keeps like popping up every like 6 months. It just hit a point where it's like somewhere along the way, it became a race to the bottom in an effort to appease people who don't actually want to play these games to begin with. And it's not to say that simplified controls don't have a place either. I mean, like I think about a game like Granblue, right? The decision making is what a lot of these games boil down to. But here's the thing. Execution is a part of that decision making. To me, it's almost like removing dribbling or 3-point shots from basketball. And again, it's not to say that I don't like watching pickleball for what it is, but it's like I don't want tennis to become pickleball. I like tennis for tennis. I like basketball for basketball. As a manlet, I am naturally disadvantaged in games like volleyball or basketball. But does that mean I would campaign for them to lower the net or lower the rim before I even try to like learn how to play like that? There's leagues for people who want to play under various conditions, but we become so obsessed with lowering the floor that we said fuck the ceiling. And I don't boot up to crawl in mud every game. I want to fucking fly. Street Fighter 6, of course, has had massive success on the back of modern controls in some ways that it's been implemented in events, and there's a lot of reasons for why that game is so successful, right? But modern controls in that, I'm not really bothered by it, and it's not new. It's speaks more to the strength of their marketing and how they were able to pitch it and showcase it this time, I think, and implement it into the game. That said, Fate Unlimited codes. Listen, man, I'm cool if we never have to do a Tiger Knee DP into a 6-4-6 motion, or a down, up, down, up, down, or a 6-4-6 motion into a reverse Tiger Knee DP. It gets excessive. But I appreciate the fact that it exists as a test, right? In the grand scheme of fighting game culture, this game exists as almost like an exam, right? And I appreciate that about it. I mean, you don't get the same sense of accomplishment hitting ABC Super as you do with hitting execution tasks in these games. Part of the hype when you see someone hit Taunt Jet Upper is knowing that boy hit that shit. He practiced and honed his timing to, again, build the skill and ability to nail that when it matters. That Sentinel Fast Fly, oh, we cooking, bruh. Ash Sans culotte loops, the H&K basketball combos. Look at those melee boys fly. Doesn't matter what game, you hit some shit, you feel like a god. Execution is a part of the games to be understood and appreciated, not be feared and removed. Exploring your limits is, I mean, it's a part of the game. In the choose your own adventure game that is your life as a fighting game player, this is just another core stat. You can go through the whole game without putting stat points in the dex, intelligence. I know that because I did. but what's also cool is you can choose to focus on other stats and strategies that satisfy requirements that you meet instead. You know, you don't want to learn the dream combo or this optimized character. I mean, you could pick E Honda. You know what I mean? In the same way you don't have to outfox Millennia with parries and dodges, you could just get yoked up and punch her in the face. Not that I advocate for that. As a player, I'm someone who does not have good execution. I appreciate features like easy mode, stylish, modern, etc. But as someone who can still remember seeing someone get War Machine looped in the back of a CC's Pizza with a sense of wonder in my eyes, asking the big kid how he did that shit, or seeing someone in the arcade in Beau Rivage, Biloxi, Mississippi, get ROM'd to death, and going home and accidentally using all the ink in the printer, trying to print out a game FAQs guide on how to do it. The point is seeing cool application of execution to bring out strengths in characters in games I love, presented a challenge that drove me to learn. It's rare that single-player content in fighting games would compel me in a way that this game and some others can. But for that enamored kid who was, again, just when it came to combos and infinites and loops, this was one that called to me in a unique way that I'm proud to say I was finally able to answer, even if it took me 16 years. It was 16, however many, I forget. But how many games have you picked up 16 years later after the fact and ran like that? What about a fighting game? How's the revival going for Street Fighter V and Street Fighter IV, guys? Lastly, I want you to consider how we, the audience, engage with these games nowadays. Like I said, this game's existence in the scope of fighting game culture is an obscure execution fetish title, right? Not unlike some other games. But given how we engage with these games in current day through social media and immediate criticism and calling for patches with patch culture mixed in, would this game, given its identity, even be allowed to exist in the way that it does in modern day? In my mind, I think about like the thought experiment, what if this game came out today? I think the developers would be immediately pressed to release the PSP version. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is an interesting case because I feel like a lot of EVO's success in the 2000s was built on Marvel 2. And when you think about what that game is and how people would react if it were released that way today, would it even be allowed to be what it is and what it came to be? Same goes for several other games. You know, I've mentioned them throughout this video, HMK, Melee, whatever. In the end, I appreciate this game for what it is, and I would like to see more people give it a shot and try it and appreciate it, because they had a lot of cool ideas, man. I want to thank the Fatal Limited Codes enthusiasts who came through on streams, especially Ray, Lord Knight, Marlon Pie. These guys shared tips and advice in crucial moments. Huge thanks to the Mizumi Wiki and the wards of the Fatal Limited Codes knowledge on there. I also encourage you guys to try the game for yourself if you want to. Check out the homepage, read, follow directions. Just follow directions. Anyway, I saw in the past couple years, right? Now you gotta think like during Corona era especially. You pop on YouTube, I see a lot of people get like randomly booting up Marvel vs. Capcom 2, trying to do Iron Man Infinite for content farming. Yeah, Brian F was getting hype over this boxer combo with Lynx. It inspired me, but also actually made me wonder what they would say for some of the combos if they actually knew what was happening. And it highlights there are different kinds of difficulty, and I love that this is what this game kind of emphasizes, right? Like link timing versus juggle height management while you're trying to do a rhythm of complex inputs, right? There's different variations on quote-unquote difficulty when it comes to combos. So for me, what I want to see is I want to issue a challenge. I'm talking about all the big dogs y'all know. Guile Winquote, Desk, the bald dude from the Midwest, Justin Wong, Max, get Coney's bitch ass on this game. Cloud 805, Feed EX, I'm calling out the Tekken Pro. Yo, Tone, boot up. Diaphone, I gotta see you hit some stuff. Look, Berserker, Kotomine, Archer, Luvia, Rider, Zero Lancer. Pop those combos on stream. And look, if you were one of those dudes on Panda Global farming KOF 13 and BBCF trials, I'm calling you out. Show me something. I performed these on my Virtua Stick high grade with it was a normal JLF, but I think leverless will help make these a lot easier for a lot of y'all. So far, kind of what I did here should be enough to kind of give you a taste of what the game asks of players. I think the characters that I nominated. But anyway, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for watching. If you made it this far in the video, be on the lookout for more cool stuff on the channel in the near future. And thanks to everybody who subscribed and watched this. Appreciate it. Catch you guys next time.